Knowledge as prejudice. The role of assumptions, paradigm shifts and cultural context. Knowledge is often regarded as an accumulation of objective truths, yet a deeper analysis reveals that it is inherently shaped by prejudice and bias. This is because knowledge, like prejudice, is based on assumptions, is subject to paradigm shifts, and is deeply influenced by cultural and historical contexts. While knowledge seeks to be justified and true, its dependence on pre-existing frameworks makes it susceptible to the same limitations as bias. Assumptions as the basis of knowledge at its core. Knowledge relies on assumptions. Every discipline, theory, or scientific model begins with foundational premises that are accepted without absolute proof. For example, in mathematics, axioms are assumed to be true without empirical verification. In the sciences, researchers operate under theoretical frameworks that determine what counts as valid evidence. This is similar to how prejudice functions. Individuals form beliefs about the world based on prior experiences, traditions, or accepted norms. Both knowledge and prejudice involve an act of assuming certain things to be true before any further reasoning takes place. The process of acquiring knowledge, then, is not purely neutral or objective. It is influenced by what is already assumed. To be correct, these assumptions shape the questions we ask, the methods we use, and even the interpretations of results. If knowledge were purely objective, it would not be so vulnerable to shifts in perspective over time. Paradigm shifts, the fluid nature of knowledge. Philosopher Thomas Kuhn introduced the idea of paradigm shifts, demonstrating that knowledge is not fixed, but changes radically over time. Scientific revolutions occur when prevailing theories are replaced by new ones, fundamentally altering what is considered true. For instance, the shift from a geocentric to a heliocentric model of the universe was not just a correction of an error, but a complete transformation in how humans understood the cosmos. Similarly, the theory of relativity overturned Newtonian physics, redefining fundamental concepts of space and time. If knowledge were purely objective, it would not undergo such radical transformations. The fact that knowledge is subject to change suggests that it is shaped by prevailing perspectives and intellectual trends, much like prejudice. What is considered common sense or scientific fact in one era may later be seen as a flawed assumption or an outdated belief. In this way, knowledge, like bias, is context-dependent and temporary. Cultural and historical context, the limits of objectivity. Knowledge is not produced in a vacuum. It is deeply tied to cultural and historical contexts. Different societies develop distinct ways of knowing, influenced by their values, traditions, and historical conditions. Western scientific knowledge, for instance, prioritizes empirical observation and logic, while indigenous knowledge systems often emphasize relational and holistic perspectives. What is considered rational or scientific in one culture may not be recognized as such in another. Even within a single society, knowledge evolves based on social and political factors. The history of medicine, for example, shows how biases about gender, race, and class have shaped scientific conclusions. Diseases that primarily affected women were often dismissed as hysteria in past centuries, while racial biases led to harmful medical practices based on false biological assumptions. This demonstrates that knowledge is not purely the result of objective discovery, but is intertwined with societal structures and prejudices. Conclusion: knowledge as a refined form of bias. Although knowledge aims for objectivity, it is shaped by assumptions, paradigm shifts, and cultural context, making it a refined form of bias. Like prejudice, knowledge begins with unexamined beliefs, adapts over time, and is shaped by the perspectives of those who produce it. Recognizing this does not mean rejecting knowledge altogether, but rather approaching it with critical awareness. Understanding the limitations of knowledge allows for a more nuanced engagement with truth, one that acknowledges its provisional and evolving nature.